Hello. So now let us start the second topic of this chapter, that is lymph. We are already done with the fluid tissue, that is the extracellular fluid, and out of which we are done with the blood. Now let us start with the second part, that is the lymph. Okay. So lymph is basically a colorless mobile connective tissue. Lymph is a colorless mobile connective tissue which is basically present in the lymphatic system, So as we have got a circulatory system consisting of the blood, okay, similarly we have got the lymphatic system as well, which is mainly consisting of lymphatic vessels, okay, and lymphatic networks, lymph plasma and all that. So we'll see that. So how does it form? How is it formed? Okay, so it is formed by the interstitial fluid or tissue fluid, we can say. So let us see how it is formed. So when the blood passes through the capillaries in tissue, we know that when the blood is passing through the capillaries in tissue, it is passing under high pressure. Okay, so some water along with the many water soluble substances and some leukocytes. So when it is passing through this tissue, it will be consisting all this RBC, WBCs and other minerals and all that. Out of this, all the cells and fluid, some WBCs and some water soluble substances, minerals will squeeze out through the spaces but between these cells of the blood vessel, that is the RBC. So that is the blood vessels, or we can say the capillaries. Okay, so what will happen when, let us give me a idea over here. So let us, this is the capillaries. So out of this capillary there will be this wall, epithelial wall. Some cells will be squeezing out. Of this capillary wall, and these cells which are squeezing out will be consisting of mainly the WBC. It will be also getting some fluid present in the blood and some minerals also. And all this squeezed out substances will be now moving into the spaces between the cells of tissues. Which is now called as interstitial fluid, or we can say tissue fluid, and it has got the same mineral distribution like in the plasma, that it will be almost similar to the plasma, except it will not be having any type of hemoglobin cell, that is RBC will be absent, even the platelets sometimes will be absent. So it will be having WBC mainly, so WBC and the plasma. So it mainly consists of the lymphatic system, collect the fluids and drain back into the major veins. So what does it do? It collects the fluid by this squeezing of the fluid from the blood capillaries, and then it is again given back to the veins. Okay, so it is a type of circulatory system as well. The fluid present in this lymphatic system is called as lymph. So what is lymph? Lymph is basically a colorless mobile connective tissue which is mainly found in the lymphatic system as a fluid, and it is formed by the squeezing of some fluid which cells through the pressure through the capillary under the high pressure. Okay, and which get filled into the space between the cells of tissue, and hence called as interstitial fluid or interstitial tissue fluid. Okay, now consists of lymph plasma and lymph corpuscles. It mainly consists of the lymph plasma, as a fluidy structure, and the lymph corpuscles, similar to the blood, we can say the corpuscles with the cells, not the RBCs, and the lymph plasma will be having the almost similar type of what you can say mineral distribution as in the plasma. Let us see a brief differences between the blood and lymph. So blood is particularly red in color due to presence of hemoglobin in RBC, while lymph is colorless as RBCs are absent. Okay. Next, it moves away from the heart and towards the heart. So the blood will be showing double circulation. It will be first of all moving away from the heart and then again to the hearts. But in the case of lymph, it moves in the one direction only, from the tissue to subclavians. Okay, so it will be basically moving from tissue to the vein particular. So it will not be flowing in both the direction. Now it consists of plasma, RBC, WBC and platelets, while the lymph consists of plasma and WBC. And maximally this WBC will containing the lymphocytes. Okay, its plasma has more proteins, calcium and phosphorus, while this lymph will be having less proteins and other calcium and phosphorus like minerals. Glucose concentration is low in the case of blood, glucose concentration high in the lymph. Flow of a blood is fast. In the case of lymph, the blood or the lymph, it does not flow so fast, it will be flowing so slowly. Mainly the flowing of the lymph, basically the blood will be flowing under the effect of pumping organ, that is the heart. Lymph does not have any type of pumping organ like heart, so the flow of the lymph will be due to gravitational force and due to the movement of the body. So when the movement of the body will take place, a jerk of that movement will be responsible for moving this lymph from one place to another. So the lymph will be moving due to mainly the gravitational pull and the flow and the movement of the body part. Okay, now we have seen lymph system consists of lymph plasma, lymph corpuscles, and the lymph capillaries. So lymph capillaries are unlike the blood capillaries, which are basically having two terminals which are opened, connected to different parts. But in the case of lymph capillaries, they are having one free end. It means the one end will be always free. It will be closed. Okay, so it will be having closed one free end. Okay. And in the case of capillaries are mostly present in all the part of the body cells, all the tissues mostly. But lymph capillaries are completely absent in the case of epidermis, hair, nails, claws, cornea of eye, etc. So here this lymph capillaries will be absent. And the last one is the lacteal. What is lacteals? The lacteals are the lymph capillaries of villi. You know what villi is. The villi is basically the structure, the epithelial filamentous structure, the epithelial membrane filamentous structure found in the intestinal epithelial cells, right? Is the filamentous extension of the epithelial cells present in the intestinal wall. So they are responsible for increasing surface area and hence increasing the absorption. So these lymph capillaries of villi of intestine are called as lacteals. So these lymph capillaries of the villi of intestine are called as lacteals, which are basically having the lymph which is color is basically milky. Okay, so that was about the lymph capillaries. Now the lymph vessels. So when we say about the lymph vessels, it is almost same as the veins in structure. It will be almost same in the veins as a structure, but unlike the vessels, unlike the veins, they will be basically having unidirectional valves. Okay, are more in the lymph vessels. So when we say the vessels, the veins will be having the valves so that the backflow is prevented. So the backflow is prevented of the blood. The blood will be basically moving in one direction only. But in the case of lymph vessels, the number of unidirectional valves will be much higher compared to the veins. Okay, why? Because it will not be having such type of pumping organ. Okay, so this is the main reason. Lymph vessels will be almost same to the vein in structure, but will be having more lymph vessels. Okay, more valves, unidirectional valves. Okay. Next is lymph vessels of complete body are combined to form two lymph vessels, mainly the right thoracic lymph vessels and the left thoracic lymph vessels. So we can divide the whole body part into two different thoracic regions. That right region consisting of the right hand, right thorax, neck, head region, etc. And this lymph opens into the right subclavian veil. Okay, so that's not up to your requirement right now. The second is the left thoracic lymph vessel, which will be basically formed by the fusion of lymph vessels of left hand, left thorax, neck, and head region, etc. So these are the two different types of lymph vessels, and the end of the lymph vessels form a node-like structures called as lymph nodes. So there are multiple lymph nodes found in the body, okay, which are basically formed by the ending or the terminal part of the lymph vessels are called as lymph nodes, where the lymphocytes are present, okay. So this is something which is important. So lymphocytes are present in the lymph nodes, they get matured over there actually. The function of lymph. So the lymph is basically considered to be the middleman. The lymph is considered to be the middleman. It means that it acts as a middleman which is responsible for exchange of nutrients and gases between the blood and the cells. So as we have seen that the blood will be basically carrying this oxygen and carbon dioxide nutrients to the different cells. So these cells will be getting this through the interstitial fluid, and this interstitial fluid is nothing but the lymph. Okay, so it acts as a middleman between the blood cells and the cells of the tissues. And next is the absorption of fat. As we have seen that the fats are being absorbed by the lacteals in the small intestine. These fats are absorbed by the lacteals in the small intestine. Okay, and this will be basically absorbed in the lymph only, not in the blood. So we have already seen the digestion, okay, and absorption. The fats will be absorbed directly into the lymph rather than the blood. Next is it maintains the blood volume in the body. Okay, so whenever the blood volume is high, so what will happen? It will squeeze out the fluid, so the blood pressure in the blood vessels will be lower down. Okay, and again opposite to that, if the blood pressure is low, so the lymph fluid will be getting inside the blood vessels, so that the volume of blood will increase, and due to which the pressure of the blood vessels can be maintained. Okay, and it destroys the invading microorganism, as the lymph will be also consisting the lymphocytes, which will be of again two type: B lymphocytes and T lymphocytes, responsible for providing antibodies and the killing of cells. So they are also responsible for providing the protection, or we can say the immunity to the body, and just we are seen to produce and the secrete antibodies in the body. Okay, so that was about the lymph. Okay, so in the next lecture we'll start with the let us start with the circulatory pathway right now only. So now circulatory pathway, as we have already seen, are of two types. The circulatory pathway can be of two types, that is the open circulatory pathway and closed circulatory pathway. So in the case of open circulatory pathway, the blood is pumped by the heart into open space or the body cavities called as sinuses. These are the sinuses, right? So these are mainly found in the organisms like arthropoda particularly. So here this is the heart-like pumping organ, which is pumping this blood into the different parts of the body. But this blood will be poured into the sinus cavity. In this cavity is called as sinus, where the different cells will be bathing into this blood. Okay, so here the open circulatory system, the blood is pumped by the heart into open spaces or body cavities called as sinuses, mainly found in the arthropods and the mollusk. While the closed circulatory system, the blood pumped by the heart always circulates through a closed network of blood vessels. They will always circulate in the closed network of the blood vessels, which can be regulated by different ways. Okay, so this is about the blood open circulatory system, mainly found in all the mammals. Okay, all the higher animals. Okay, will be found in the closed circulatory system. So this is about the open and closed. Now let us see the main pumping organ of the body, that is the heart. The heart is considered the main pumping of the body. So it is muscular and chambered heart. We have got the chambered. So chambered, it means it is divided into different structures. Okay, its components are formed. Now, depending on the type of organisms, it may have different number of chambers. Like the fish will be having only 2-chambered heart. The fishes will be having only 2-chambered heart. Okay, the amphibians and the reptiles will be having 3-chambered heart. And exception over here is the crocodile. So crocodile, although being a reptile, but still it will not be having the 3-chambered heart. So amphibians and most of the reptiles will be having the 3-chambered heart, while the mammals, birds and the crocodiles will be having the 4-chambered heart. So let us see what is the difference between them. So this is the first which you can see. This is the what we can say. This is the A type of the heart which is in the fish, that is having only 2 chambers. The first one is the ventricle. This is the ventricle, and this is the atrium. So it is only divided through 2 chambers, that is ventricle and atrium. So here double circulatory system is absent. So we can just see the circulatory system circulation will be present. Next is the type of B is the type of amphibian heart, and the C is the reptilian heart. So amphibian heart will be basically made up of 3 chambers. Okay, so here atrium, right atrium, left atrium, and a single common ventricle, right? So this is about the 3-chambered heart. Okay, here also left ventricle and right ventricle, and a single atrium, we can say. Okay, so this is the left 3-chambered heart in the case of reptiles and the amphibians. While this is the case of heart which is found in the mammalian heart, which has got 4 chambers. That is the right atrium and right ventricle. These are the right atrium upper part, and this is the ventricle. So left ventricle and left atrium. Okay, these are the basically 4-chambered heart in the case of mammals particularly. So if you can see, the heart are of different types. It can be 2-chambered, 3-chambered, or 4-chambered. Now depending on the chambers, we can say they are of, again, how many circulatory system occurs. There are 2 types: venous heart, or we can say arteriovenous heart. Venous heart, or we can say arteriovenous heart. So what is venous heart? Let us see. So venous heart, these are the heart is mainly found in the fishes. So the heart will be handling only the deoxygenated blood. So what will happen? The deoxygenated blood from the body will be getting to the heart, which will be pumped in such a manner that this blood will be getting into the different part of the body, mainly the gills. Okay, so it will be pumped out. It will pump out the deoxygenated blood, which is oxygenated by the gills. So once this deoxygenated blood will be moving to the gills, these gills, at the surface of the gills, what will happen? This blood, which is having deoxygenated blood, will be receiving the oxygen due to the concentration difference, partial pressure difference. Now the blood will be getting oxygenated. This blood will be now flowing to the different parts of the body, where they will be supplying this oxygen. They will be releasing the oxygen, and will be absorbing the CO2, which will further get into then the blood will further get deoxygenated, and then it will enter into the heart. So here the circulation which is taking place in the heart is only one time. So here the body, so the deoxygenated blood after is returned to the heart. Okay, once it go to the gills, it gets deoxygenated again and then again return to the heart. So we can say single circulation. What we can say, during the whole process, the blood will be getting entered into the heart during only for one time. So it's called a single circulation. So what is happening? So venous heart, the deoxygenated blood will be getting into the heart, will be pumped out of the body. This deoxygenated blood will be moving to the gills, where it will get oxygenated, and this oxygenated blood is now getting into the different parts of the cell, different part of the body, where the oxygen will be given up and the carbon dioxide will be taken up. Now this blood will again get deoxygenated and will get back to the heart, and hence during the whole process, the blood will be flowing once through the process into the heart, and hence it is called single circulation. It is called a single circulation. Got it? Next is the arteriovenous heart. Next is the arteriovenous hearts. Now, arteriovenous hearts are the hearts that are found in mainly the amphibians and the reptiles, as we have seen that, right? So amphibians and reptiles will be having the arteriovenous heart, where the heart receives both the deoxygenated and oxygenated blood, where the heart will be receiving the both oxygenated and deoxygenated blood. So the left atrium will be receiving the oxygenated blood from the gills, lungs, skin, depending on the type of organism it is. Right? And the right atrium will be receiving the deoxygenated blood from the other body parts, like the different other parts, like leg part, abdominal part, head part, other parts. Okay, so the arteriovenous heart will be receiving the blood, oxygenated blood from the different respiratory surfaces, while the right atrium will be receiving the deoxygenated blood from the different other body parts. And this both type of blood, oxygenated and deoxygenated, will be basically getting mixed. So they will get mixed up in a single ventricle. Which pumps out the mixed blood, and this is called as incomplete double circulation. So although the 2 times the blood is getting circulated, but still it is not totally separated. So here, once the blood will be oxygenated and deoxygenated blood will be entering from a different pathway, from a separate path, from a separate opening. Okay, so the oxygenated and deoxygenated blood will be entering into the heart from the separate openings, but they will be leaving from the heart through a single opening, and hence it is called as arteriovenous heart. But what type of it is? It is incomplete double circulation. It is type of incomplete double circulation. Okay. Next is the last one, the double circulation heart. Double circulation mainly found in the mammals and crocodiles, where the 2 different auricles and 2 different ventricles are present, where the auricles and ventricles, right auricles are separated from the right ventricles. Right auricles are separated from the left auricles. Similarly, right ventricles is separated from the left ventricle, so that the blood will be passing through this heart 2 times during the whole process of circulation. The blood will be passing through the heart 2 times without mixing up, and hence it is called as double circulation. Note it down. The blood will be passing through the heart 2 times during the whole process of circulation without mixing up like the reptiles. Okay, so this is called as double circulation. So you can see open circulation, double and closed circulation. We have already seen that open circulation and closed circulation, I think, right? But still, the open circulation system, blood flows through large open spaces, and which is called as sinuses and lacunae, while the closed circulation system, blood flows through a closed system of chambers called heart and blood vessels. Tissues are in direct contact with the blood, and the blood does not come in direct contact with the tissue because the arteries and capillaries will be present. Blood flows is very slow and blood has very low pressure. But in the case of closed circulation system, because of the possessing the heart pumping organ, the blood flow is quite rapid and blood has a high pressure. And over here, the exchange of gases and nutrients take place directly between the blood and tissue, while here the nutrients and gases pass through the capillary wall to tissue fluid, from where they are passed to the tissues. So here the role of interstitial fluid, we can say lymph, is existing as a middleman in the case of closed circulation system. Okay, that is about the difference between open and closed circulation system. Now let us start with the human circulatory system. In detail. So let us see. So first of all, we will discuss about the human heart. Okay. So human circulatory system, also called as blood vessel system, mainly consists of 3 parts, that is the blood vessels and the heart. The main constituents of the human circulatory system are the 3 parts, that is the blood vessels and the blood heart. And the human heart. So let us start with the human heart. So human heart is mesodermally derived. You know that there is a germ layer, and located between the lungs in the thoracic cavity, that is called as cardiac notch. It is mainly present between the lungs in the thoracic cavity and protected by this rib cage. Okay, and the heart is protected by double-walled membranes called as pericardium. So pericardium is a membranous wall sac-like structure which is covering this heart, and hence protecting it from the shock as well. And this pericardium consists of around a fibrous layer called as parietal pericardium and an inner serous layer called as visceral pericardium. So here we can see the heart is covered by two layers. That is, outer is called as parietal pericardium, which is fibrous in nature, and the other one is basically present, which is inner serous, or we can say inner layer, and which is called as visceral pericardium. And the visceral pericardium is attached to the heart. Now in between these two layers, that is the the two layers, that is visceral pericardium and the inner serous pericardium, parietal pericardium and the visceral pericardium. The layer has got the space between them, and this space is called as pericardial cavity, which is filled with the pericardial fluid, as we have seen in the other like lungs as well. Okay, so there are two layers, as the visceral and the parietal pericardial, between which the cavity is present, which is called as pericardial cavity, which is filled by the pericardial fluid, and it protects the heart from the shocks and the mechanical injuries, and also allows its free movement. So it is responsible for providing the flexibility to the heart, and it also protects it from the shock and the mechanical injury which may occur due to the rapid movement of the heart. Now the heart can be studied into different like external structure and the internal structure. So the heart is basically having 4 chambers. The human heart particularly we are speaking about. So it has got the 4 chambers, okay, and 2 auricles and 2 ventricles, as we have seen, 2 auricles and the 2 ventricles. Okay, now this left and right arteria, and right arteria are the upper chambers, okay. So we are just studying about the external properties, external structure. So the left and the right arteria is separated by a shallow vertical interarterial groove. So here you can see, so this is the left atria, and this is the right atrium. It is separated externally. It is basically a cross section, so we will have to see external structure. Let us see, it's not present over here, no issue. So it is externally, it is separated by a shallow vertical interarterial groove, okay. And similarly the atria and the ventricles are also separated from by coronary sulcus, which is also external structure, okay. So this coronary sulcus will also be dividing the atria and the ventricles, okay, and it is a type of transversal groove. It will be type of transversal groove, okay. So the first groove is basically shallow groove, which is present vertically, interarterial groove, which is present between 2 atrium, while the transverse groove is present between the atria and the ventricles and called as coronary sulcus. And next, this sulci, there are also interventricular sulcus also present. So interventricular, like, means between 2 ventricles, there will be again a groove which is present. It is of 2 types, that is anterior interventricular sulcus and posterior interventricular sulcus. So we have seen what all different grooves are present. The first groove is present between left and right atria, which is shallow vertical nature, okay. And second is between the atria and ventricle, that is transverse groove, which is called as coronary sulcus. And third one is between the interventricular, it means between 2 ventriculars, okay. And it will be again vertical in nature, and it can be of 2 types. It can be anterior interventricular sulcus, which is towards the outer side, while the posterior interventricular sulcus, which is towards the lower side, okay. And this both grooves, or the interventricular sulcus, will basically responsible, which will be having the coronary arteries through which the heart receives blood. So they will be having the coronary arteries. So this sulci have coronary arteries through which the heart will be receiving the blood, okay. I hope this is clear. So here what will happen? So let us see. So right atrium is comparatively larger. The right atrium is comparatively larger than the left atrium, you can see. So this is the right atrium, this is the left atrium. So the right atrium is comparatively larger than the left atrium, okay. And because the intra-auricle groove is slightly towards the left auricle, so this intra-auricle groove will be slightly towards the left auricle, okay. The right and left atria receive the blood from different body parts. So this right one atria will be also receiving the body blood, and this left atrium will be also receiving the body will be receiving the blood from the different body parts. So right atrium will be receiving the deoxygenated blood, right down. So right atrium will be receiving the deoxygenated blood from all the body parts. So it will be receiving the blood from all the body parts. And what type of blood? It will be receiving the deoxygenated blood. It will be receiving the deoxygenated blood except from the lungs. Keep it in mind. So right atrium will be receiving the blood from all the body parts except the lungs. Okay, from where it is receiving? It is receiving from the superior vena cava. It is getting it from the superior vena cava and this inferior vena cava. So what are these vena cava? Vena cava are the basically type of blood vessels from which the atrium will be receiving the blood. So superior will be responsible for bringing out the blood from the a part of the body which is in the thoracic and above the thoracic region, while the inferior vena cava is responsible for bringing the blood from the part of the body which is present below the thoracic region particularly. Okay, so now the superior vena cava and inferior vena cava will be bringing the blood. Now the pulmonary vein brings the oxygenated blood to the left atrium. Now here the left atrium will be also receiving the blood, but the blood which is received here will be coming from the lungs and will be oxygenated, unlike the right atrium. So here it will be oxygenated in nature and it will be getting from the lungs. Okay, so this is important. So right atrium will be getting from the body parts and the left atrium will be getting from the lungs. Right atrium will be getting the deoxygenated blood while the left atrium will be getting the oxygenated blood. Okay, next is the the right and the left blood arteria will be pouring the blood into the right and left ventricles respectively. So this right atrium will be pouring the blood into this part, that is ventricle, and left auricle will be pouring this blood into the left ventricle. Okay, and the left ventricle gives rise to ascending aorta. So here you can see this is aorta. Once the left auricle ventricle will be passing through this is the type of cavity you can see, and it will give out into aorta. So this is the aorta, which will be basically again divided into arteries. The one which is going to the upper body will be the upper arteries, and the one which is going to the lower body, this is the lower body. Okay, so this aorta will be distributing the blood into different part of the body. Okay, so this left atrium will be giving the blood into left ventricle, through which it will be moving to the aorta, and through the aorta it will be distributed to the different parts in the upper body parts and the lower body parts of the body. Okay, now from the right auricles over here, from the right auricles, what happens? From the right auricles, the pulmonary veins will be reformed. The pulmonary trunk will be arising. So we can say from the right ventricle, the pulmonary trunk. This is the pulmonary trunk. Okay, this is the pulmonary trunk. We can say. Okay, here you can observe it. The pulmonary trunk will be arising. Okay, which will be bifurcates and to form right and left pulmonary arteries. So this will be bifurcating right and left pulmonary arteries. Okay, which will be responsible for supplying the deoxygenated blood to the lungs of the left and right side. Okay, so this deoxygenated blood will be getting into the lungs. Now at the lungs, what will happen? This blood will be getting in contact with the alveoli, where the exchange of gases will take place. The oxygen which is present in the alveoli in higher amount will be moving or will be diffusing into the blood, while the CO2 which is present high amount in the blood will be diffusing into the alveoli, and hence it will be removed out of the body. Okay, so here the exchange of gases will be taking place at the surface of the alveoli, from which the blood will be getting oxygenated and will be getting back to the left atrium. So that was about how the blood will be circulating. Okay, so let us see the internal structure now. I hope things are clear. Okay, next is the internal structure. The internal structure consisting of it basically has got 4 chambers which are separated by septa and valves. Okay, septa, what are septa? It's basically a valve which is present between 2 parts. Okay, and valves are the type of regulatory structures which are responsible for regulating the flow of the blood. The first septum is basically interatrial septum. So here you can see these are the 2 atriums, right and left. So between these 2 there will be a septum called as interatrium septum. Okay, so first one is interatria septum. Okay, next is the an oval depression is present on this septum called as fossa ovalis. So this is something which is remnant of the embryonic part. So a septum will be having an oval depression called as a fossa ovalis. That's okay. The right atrium receives the opening of the superior vena cava, inferior vena cava, and the corona sinus. So here we have seen this is the right atrium. This will be receiving the opening of superior vena cava. This one, this is the inferior vena cava. Okay, so superior vena cava, inferior vena cava, and corona sinus. So coronary sinus is what is it? Coronary sinus we already seen the part which is responsible for coronary arteries. Okay, so this is what we have seen. Okay, next is the opening of inferior cava is guarded by eustachian valve. So here this is the inferior cava. This is opening into the atrium, right atrium, which is guarded by a specific type of valve called eustachian valve. Okay, eustachian valve. While the opening of coronary sinus has got a coronary or Thebesian valve or coronary valve. The left atrium receives 4 openings of pulmonary veins. So here the left atrium will be receiving the opening from the veins. How many openings are there? There are 4 pulmonary veins opening. There are 4 openings of pulmonary veins. Okay. The 2 ventricles are separated by interventricular septum. This is the 2 ventricles. This is the right one and the left one, and these are again separated by a septum. This here septum we can see. So what the septum it is? Interventricular septum. What is it called? It is called as interventriculum septum, and the atrium is called as interatrial septum. Okay, that was about the internal structure of heart, which consists of 4 chambers separated by septum and valves. So first septum is basically interatrial septum. Okay, and having a fossa ovalis present on it as a depression. And the right atrium receives the opening from the superior vena cava and the coronary sinuses, while the opening of inferior vena cava is regulated by eustachian valve. The opening of coronary sinuses is basically has got the Thebesian valve, and the left atrium opens for opening we have seen. Okay, and the 2 ventricles are separated by interventricular septum. Now let us see the structure of heart layers. Okay, different layers. So the heart wall is consisting of 3 layers mainly. The heart wall is basically consisting of 3 layers. So what are layers are there? First one is the epicardium. Epi means the outermost, and the cardium means this is the heart. Okay, so it is the outermost layer of the cells, which is composed of simple squamous epithelium. So you have to note it down. So this epicardium or the outermost layer is basically made up of simple squamous epithelium, which are mesodermal in origin. Okay, as we have seen the embryonic layer. Okay, so these are epicardium are the outermost layers, which is basically made up of simple squamous epithelium. Okay, now second one is middle layer. Myocardium. Second one is myocardium. It is also called as middle layer. Okay, and it is the thickest layer. It is the thickest layer which is composed of the cardiac muscles. So we have already seen what are the cardiac muscles. So these muscles are branched, striated, and involuntary in nature. So these muscles are involuntary. It means that it is not under our control. Okay, they will be continuously beating. They will continuously movement will be shown over there. And they are branched and striated. They are striated and branched. Okay, so the myocardium is the thickest layer, and it's the middle layer which is composed of the cardiac muscles which are branched, striated, and the involuntary in nature. Now they do contract for the whole lifetime, but do not get fatigue. Okay, they do not get fatigue, and these muscles are having fast construction. They will be carrying out very fast contractions. The last one is endocardium. It is the innermost layer. And again mainly composed of the simple squamous epithelium. So the outer epicardium is also made up of simple squamous epithelium, while the endocardium, that is the innermost layer, is also made up of simple squamous epithelium. But the difference in both is that the epicardium was mesodermal in origin, while the endocardium is basically endodermal origin. Okay, now that was about these 3 layers. Now each atria opens into ventricles of its side by atrioventricular foramen. So it's a type of connecting part, which is basically connecting the atria and ventricular part. Okay, and this will be basically having some valves. This atrioventricular foramen will be having some valve. Okay, now on right side of ventricular foramen, we have got 3 folds are present, which is called as tricuspid valve. So here you can see. So here you can see these are the valves which is present in the atrium and the ventricle. Now at the right side, the valve will be having 3 flappular structure, 3 fold-like structure, which is called as tricuspid valve. Okay, while in the left atrium and left ventricle, the left atrium and left ventricle will be having a 2-fold structure or 2-cuspic structure, which is called as bicuspid valve, or you can say mitral valve. So you have to write it down. You may get confused in this particular time in this question. That is, on right side we have got tricuspid valve, okay, RT, and in the left side we have got bicuspid valve, we can say mitral valve, this and having 2 flaps, while the tricuspid valve will be having the 3 flaps. Okay, 3 folds. Rather than flaps, we can call them as folds. And what does it do? So mainly they are responsible for preventing the reverse flow of the blood. So once the blood is getting into the atrium, and from atrium it will get into the ventricle. So there are chances that the blood from the ventricles may flow back to the artericles, but has to be prevented, and this is prevented by the valves. And this valve will be ensuring that the blood is flowing in unidirection. So what is the function of valve? The valve will be ensuring that the blood is flowing in the unidirection. Okay, so that's about the valves. Now what is some chorda tendineae? Chorda tendineae. So these valves prevent we have seen they prevent the reverse flow of the blood. Now these ends of this valves, or we can say these flaps, are attached with the muscular processes of walls of ventricles. Okay, so these valves are attached to a specific muscular structures which are present in the walls of the ventricles, and these thread-like structures are called as chorda tendineae. So what are chorda tendineae? Chorda tendineae are thread-like structures which are responsible for attachment of this flow flaps or this cusp of valve on the wall of ventricles, on the wall of ventricles, called as chorda tendineae. Okay, now right ventricle has got, now this right ventricle and this left ventricle, this both will be basically forming an arc-like structure. There you can see. So these are the right ventricle, this is the right ventricle. Here it will form this arc-like structure. This, okay. Similarly, the left ventricle will be also forming an arc-like structure. This arc-like structure. Okay. So this right ventricle will be forming in a pulmonary arc. Why? Because the arc which is formed is basically formed by the pulmonary veins. Okay. So this pulmonary artery will be carrying this blood away. So it will be forming because of pulmonary artery. So we can say pulmonary arc. While the left ventricle will be formed by the carotido, or we can say carotid system arc will be arising from the left ventricle. At the base of each arc, 3 semilunar valves are present. Over here, we can say at the base of this arc, over here and over here, we can say 3 semilunar valves are present. Semilunar valves are the valves which are present in the pulmonary artery particularly. Okay, so at the base of each arc, 3 semilunar valves are present. Now, how does pumping action of human heart take place? Pumping action of human heart will take place. So let us see. Now, heart is a complex pumping organ. We know that heart is a very complex pumping organ which receives the blood from the different parts of body in its arteria and pump it back into various parts of the body parts from the ventricles. Okay, so we know that it is a complex pumping organ where the body will be receiving the blood from the different part into atrium, and it will be pumped back to the different parts of body through the ventricles. Okay, and now these heart muscles will be in continuously movement. These heart muscles will be in continuous movement and will be responsible for generating impulses. Which will be responsible for generating impulses, and that causes the rhythmic contraction and relaxation of the heart chambers. Will be responsible for contraction and relaxation of the rhythmic contraction and relaxation of the heart chambers. Okay, and in a specific sequence, and this will be called as systole and diastole. So what is systole? Let us see. So a contraction of heart is called a systole. You have to note it down. So a contraction of heart is called a systole, and its relaxation is called as diastole. You have to note it down. So what is systole and what is diastole? So systole is the contraction of heart is called a systole, while the relaxation of heart is called as diastole. Now the atria and the ventricles contract alternately. So once the atrium gets contracted, then the ventricle will get contracted. Okay, so they will be contracting alternately, and there are some specific tissues, or we can say nodal tissues or excitatory or conductive system of heart. Let us see. So there are some tissues which are responsible for generating the impulses. There are some tissues which are responsible for generating these impulses, due to which the heart will be beating. Okay, so these are called as nodal tissue or excitatory system or excitatory and conductive system of the heart. It includes mainly the SA node and AV node. So SA node is also called as sinoatrial node. The SA node is called as sinoatrial node, SA node. It is also called as pacemaker. Okay, and the second is basically the intraventricular node, that is AV node. These are the main 2 nodes. Okay, and internodal pathways are also present, but still these are the main 2 nodes. AV node is also called as pace maintainer. Now, and after this, the AV bundles and the bundle of Purkinje fibers. So this are the basically parts of the generating and transferring the impulses. So it will be of nodal tissues will be containing SA node, then internodal pathway, AV node, and this Purkinje bundles and Purkinje fibers. Okay, so let us see what are basically Purkinje fibers. These are fibers which are which are basically present throughout the ventricular musculature, throughout the ventricular region. Okay, and these fibers will be basically now again getting bifurcated into right and left bundles, and these are called a bundle of His. This will be called a bundle of His. Okay, now first of all let us start with the SA node. Let us start with the SA node. Okay, so working of the nodal tissue. Let us see. Okay, so let us see the working of nodal tissue. Before that, let us see the nodal tissues, the working of nodal tissue. Okay, here we are. Okay, so SA node and the AV node, we have seen that. Okay, so SA node and AV node, how do they basically function? So what are SA node particularly? So SA node are small flattened and ellipse strip of muscle of around 0.3 mm size. So what are the SA nodes? These are the small structures which are basically having around 0.3 millimeter size, which is situated in the upper lateral wall of right atrium. Is mainly situated at the upper lateral wall of right atrium. And the atrioventricular node, or we can say AV node, also called a space setter. It is also a strip of muscle fiber lies in wall between the right atrium and the right ventricle. They are mainly found in the right atrium and the right ventricle. Okay, and therefore found on the upper lateral wall of the right atrium. A bundle of nodal fibers called atrioventricular bundles, AV bundles, arises from the AVN and passes through the atrioventricular septa. It emerges on the top of the interventricular septum and immediately divides into the right and left bundle, and which will give rise to the formation of Purkinje fibers. And this Purkinje fibers will be again forming right and left bundles known as bundle of His. So here we have seen that SA node, then SA node, after SA node there will be the AV node. After AV node we will be having AV bundles. Okay, and after the AV bundles we will be having this Purkinje fibers, and then we will be having this bundle of His. So these are the different structures that are responsible for the excitation, or we can say the conductive system of the heart. So you have to note it down. So conductive system of heart starts from the SA node to AV node to AV bundle, and AV bundle to Purkinje fiber, and then the bundle of His. Okay, now how this nodal tissue are basically working, how this nodal tissue will be working. So these nodal tissues are auto-excitable. So they are not basically dependent on any type of external structures for their excitability. So they are auto-excitable. It means they are able to generate their own action potential without any external stimuli. So they are able to generate their own action potential without any external stimuli, and hence they are called as auto-excitable. The first is SA node, that is SN. It is around 7 to 75 minutes. It is responsible for it will be basically able to generate the maximum number of action potentials. They will be responsible for, SA node is responsible for generation of maximum number of action potential, that is around 70 to 75 per minute. And it is responsible for initiating and maintaining the rhythmic contractile activity of heart. It is responsible for maintaining and initiating the rhythmic contractile activity of heart, and hence it is called as SA node. Hence it is called as pacemaker. So it is responsible for making the pace. Okay, and the action potential which is generated in SA node, okay, will spontaneously initiate a wave of contraction which spreads over both the atria more or less simultaneously. So it will be basically the impulse which is generated by this SA node will be moving to both the atrium simultaneously, almost right and left atrium. Okay, and this also stimulates the AV node. Now once this SA node is basically activating or getting exciting this right and left atrium, afterwards it will also stimulate the AV node through the internodal pathway, which generates a fresh wave of contraction. So the SA node will be basically giving out the contraction of atrium, but after a particular period of time that will be getting relaxed. Okay, so it will be getting fade off. Then when these impulses are passed to the AV node through the internal pathway, it create a fresh wave of contraction that passes over the ventricles along with the bundle of His and Purkinje fibers. So SA node will be going to the AV node will be basically to the internal pathway, and through this internal pathway this will be moving to the Purkinje fibers and the bundle of His. And all this is basically by auto-excitability. It means it is not dependent on any other type of external stimuli. Okay, now this AV node. Next is the Ventricular contraction also begins because of this this action potential, which is basically coming due to the bundle of His and Purkinje fibers. Okay, now the entire conduction of impulse is organized in such a way that there is a delay in transmission of impulse from SA node to when the SA node is basically getting the action potential. So that will be moving to the ventricles, but it will take a time. So the whole process is made in such a way that it will be having a bit of space between them. Okay. So let us see. Okay, next is the difference between the neurogenic and the myogenic heart. So here the heart, what we have discussed is the myogenic. So the difference between the neurogenic and myogenic is that the neurogenic heart is the one which is controlled or is initiated by the ganglion. This ganglion which is situated in the heart. So it is mainly found in the lower animals. Okay, neurogenic heart is when the heartbeat will be also initiated by the ganglion, while the myogenic heart, the heartbeat is initiated by a patch of modified heart muscles. So here we have seen that SA node, AV node, and Purkinje fibers, a bundle of His, are the different type of modified heart muscles responsible for autoexcitability, and hence they are not dependent on a type of neurons particularly for that time being. And the neurogenic heart, the impulse of contraction originates from nervous system, and over here the impulse of contraction originates itself. Okay, we have seen that. The heart normally stops beating immediately after the removal of the body from the body. So once in the case of neurogenic heart, like the heart of arthropods mostly and annelids, okay. So if the body is dead and if the heart is removed, so it will stop immediately. Okay, why? Because it is under the control of ganglion, under the nervous system. But in the case of humans, if you basically remove the heart from the body, so this heart will be continues to beat for some time. It may be for us as well, and this is the reason why the hearts of the humans can be transplanted from the one body to another body. Okay, because it will be continuously beating after removing out the body as well. But in the case of the neurogenic heart, this cannot be carried out. Examples: heart of some annelids and most arthropods, while the myogenic heart will be mainly found in the mollusk and all the vertebrates. Okay, that is about the heart and the structure and the mode of action and how do they function. Next is the cardiac cycle. So cardiac cycle is basically the sequence of events. It's a sequence of events which occurs from the beginning of one heartbeat, to the beginning of the next, or we can say the completion of one heartbeat is called as cardiac cycle. So what is cardiac cycle? It's a sequence of events from the beginning of one heartbeat to the beginning of the next heartbeat, or we can say the total completion of the one heartbeat. During the heartbeat, there is a contraction and relaxation of artery and ventricles. So we know that there is a basically rhythmic contraction and relaxation of the artery and ventricles, due to which the heartbeat will be formed. As we already have seen that the contraction phase is called a systole, while the relaxation phase is called as diastole. So what is the contraction? Contraction phase is called as systole, and the relaxation phase is called as diastole. And a complete heartbeat consists of a systole and diastole of both atria. So write down. So the complete heartbeat will be consisting of a systole and diastole of both atria, plus the systole and diastole of both the ventricles, we will see how it happens. Okay. Next is, when both an atria and ventricles are in diastolic or relaxed phase, then such condition is called joint diastole. So this is the systole, that is a contraction, and diastole is the relaxation, and joint diastole when both the atria and ventricles are in the relaxed phase, then it is called as joint diastole. Okay. Next is first of all, let us see the joint diastole. So blood flows from the superior and inferior vena cava into the arteria. So when both the ventricles and the artericles are in relaxed condition, so that's the normal condition, that's the relaxed condition, the blood will be flowing from the atrium to the atrium through the superior and inferior infra cava into the atrium. No flow of the blood from the ventricles to the aorta or pulmonary trunk. So aorta will be not flowing the blood to the different parts. Okay. As the semilunar valves will be closed, we have seen where the semilunar valves are present. They are present mainly in the pulmonary trunk and the aorta. Okay, so this will be closed. Okay, and the ventricles will be not pouring out the blood outside, but it will be getting filled. Atrium will be getting filled. Okay, first is the atrial systole. It means the contraction of the atrium. So the two atria contract simultaneously due to wave of contraction stimulated by the SA node. So we see, so SA node will be responsible, which is present in the right side of the lateral wall of the atrium, which will be responsible for giving the impulses to both the atrium right and left, and hence both will be getting contracted simultaneously. and will form a wave of contraction. And the blood which was filled now in the atrium, the blood which was present in the atrium will be filled into the ventricles, will be pumped into ventricles, because when the contraction occurs, what will happen? The pressure will increase in the atrium, due to which the valves which are present within right and left artery ventricles, which is called as tricuspid and bicuspid valve, will open up. The blood is pumped into ventricles as the bicuspid and tricuspid valves are open. Now arterial systole takes up around 0.1 second, and soon after the systole, the artery enters into the diastole phase for the next 0. Once the arterial gets contracted for 0.1 second, the blood will be getting poured into the ventricles. Okay, and both the valves will be opened up, that is bicuspid and tricuspid. And then after just a contraction, both the atrium will be getting into the next phase, and that will be called as diastolic phase, which will there for around 0.7 second. Now from the atria, nearly 70% of blood passively flows into the ventricles. So when we know that already, so because it will move from the higher concentration to low concentration, so most of the blood will be flowing passively, and rest of the blood is pumped into ventricles by the contraction of atria. So even afterwards, all the blood will be getting into the ventricles. So the remaining blood will be pumped into ventricles due to the contraction of the atrium. Okay. Now once the joint systole is done, the atrial systole is done. Next is the ventricle systole. So when the atrial systole approaches its end, the ventricle begins to contract due to the stimulation. But as we have seen, there is a specific type of timing between the AV node and SA node. It is AV node, the impulse generated by the AV node are delayed, and they are basically programmed in that manner that the SA node will be getting impulse first earlier, and then the AV node, and there will be a specific type of difference in time between both this activation of SA and AV node. Okay. Now the bicuspid and the tricuspid valve close immediately due to producing part of the first, and when these ventricles are getting filled up, so when they get filled up, just after that the bicuspid and tricuspid valve will be getting closed, which will respond formation of the heartbeat sound, that is the lub. Okay, we'll see how it is formed. And the ventricles complete the contraction, the blood flows into the pulmonary trunk and aorta as the seminal valves open. So once the ventricles are basically totally completed and they get contracted, the blood will start flowing to the pulmonary artery and the aorta, and this ventricle systole will be taking for around 0.3 seconds. It will be basically takes around 0.3 seconds. Okay, so here you can see the whole cardiac cycle. Complete cardiac diastole is for 0.4 second, and the arterial systole is for 0.1 second, and ventricle systole will be for 0.3 seconds. So it will be consisting of 0.8 second for one heartbeat. Okay, it will be 0.8 for one heartbeat. Now the ventricle systole, soon after systole, ventricle diastole, both ventricles will get relaxed. Okay, so the ventricles undergo relaxation, seminal valves are closed. Once the pulmonary artery and this aorta has released the blood, so it will get closed, and this closing of the seminal valves are responsible for the formation of the second sound that is formed with the heartbeat, that is the dub. Okay, and the period of ventricle diastole is about 0.5 seconds. Joint diastole, as we have already seen the first of us as well. During this phase, both the artery and ventricles are diastole, and no contraction is present anywhere. So no part of the heart will be contracted during this particular phase, resting phase. The phase of joint diastole is also called as general phase, and total duration of the cardiac cycle is around 0.8 seconds. Thus, many cardiac cycles are performed per minute. Okay, so we have seen that we will see how many number of cardiac cycles we perform per minute, and that can also be obtained from the heartbeat as well. Now, heart sounds. We have seen that if you basically see the stethoscope, what is stethoscope? It's a tubular structure used to listen the heartbeat particularly. And by listening the heartbeat, we can get to know it's a different type of symptoms of different diseases, or if the body is basically diseased or not proper, then the heartbeat may change. Okay, that may give us a sign that the person is suffering from something. So with the help of stethoscope, we can get to hear the heart beating. Okay, which are of two types, that is lub and dub. The lub is the first one, the dub is the second one. So how this lub is formed? So when this bicuspid and tricuspid valves are just closed, so this closing of this both valves will be responsible for formation of lub. So lub is comparatively low pitched, okay, and for longer duration. It is around for 0.15 second, 0.15 second. Okay, so the first is basically formed by the closing of the bicuspid and tricuspid valve, that is forming the sound called as lub. The second sound is the dub. which is formed by the closure of semilunar valves, we have seen. So it is high pitched but for a shorter duration, so that is around for 0.1 seconds. Okay, so the lub is basically low pitch but longer duration, and dup is for the short pitch, or we can say high pitch but shorter duration. And lub is formed due to the closure of the bicuspid and tricuspid valves, while the dup is formed due to the closing of the semilunar valves. Okay, the heart sounds are clinical diagnostic significant, so they are important for basically getting to know whether the patient is suffering from any particular type of problems or not. Okay, there is another type of sound which is called heart murmur. It's called a heart murmur. Now, what is heart murmur? So, heart murmur is a specific type of sound which is basically listened, which can be observed. Okay, which can observe during if the semilunar valves are injured. So suppose when the semilunar valves are injured, or the damage of bicuspid tricuspid valve may occur, and which may lead to different type of voice. But when the semilunar valves are injured, a soft hissing noise is produced, that is lubs like. Okay, so this is heard in place of the second. This is heard in the case of second voice, that is dup. So when this semilunar valves are injured, instead of dup, what may happen? Another type of voice is produced, which is called as heart murmur. It may be caused due to the syphilis, rheumatic fever, any other diseases, and this may be lead to the damaging the semilunar valves. So heart murmur is done. Next is the injuries of this is done. Okay. Next is heartbeat and pulse. So we know that the cardiac cycles are basically how it is formed. Now these cardiac cycles are responsible for beating of heart as well, and we can also see the pulse, arterial pulse. Okay, so the rhythmic contraction relaxation of the heart constitutes the heartbeat. Simple. So what is heartbeat? Is the rhythmic contraction relaxation of the heart is basically called as heartbeat. Now, each heartbeat includes one systole and one diastole of the heart. Okay, so this is important. So each heartbeat consists of one systole and one diastole of the heart to distribute and receive the blood from the tooth and from the body part. We know that. Okay. Now our heart normally beats around 70 to 75 times. Our heart normally beats around 70 to 75 times in a minute. So it's average around 72 beats per minute. Okay. Now next is atrial pulse. So atrial pulse is basically is a wave or distension passes along the arteries. So due to this is a heartbeat, a wave of distension will be passing through these arteries, and which will be immediately after the systole, which will be immediately after the ventricle systoles, and this is called as this distension, the wave of distension is called as arterial pulse. Okay, arterial pulse. It can be felt by just keeping the finger on the tip of artery near the wrist, which is called radial artery, and this artery palpitates at the rate of corresponding to that the heartbeat. So if the heartbeat is higher, the pulse will be higher. If the heartbeat is lower, the pulse will be lower, and depending on the pulse level, depending on the pulse rate, the person we can know that whether the person is basically having any type of problems or not. And during different phases, like the person is having fever, its heart pulse rate may be decrease or increase. Emotional, psychological excitement may also lead to the difference in the pulse rate. Okay, and that was about the pulse rate. Okay, when the person is lying down, his pulse rate will be low. When he is standing, his pulse rate will be high. That is about the pulse rate and the heartbeat. Okay, next is the regulation of heart. That's a regulation of heart. Okay, now as we have seen, there are myogenic heart. Myogenic heart is basically having auto excitability, where it does not basically it does not excite under the effect of any other stimuli. Or we can say it does not create action potential under the external stimuli. Okay, so that is called as myogenic heart. Okay, but this myogenic heart will be also having a bit of regulation from the nervous system and the endocrine system. Okay, so first regulation is basically neural regulation. So the cardiac center lies in the medulla oblongata. So medulla oblongata has got a cardiac center from which basically is responsible for maintaining the heartbeat. So what is that? The SA node receives two sets of nerve fibers. So nerve fibers originating from this medulla oblongata will be received by the SA node, and this SA node will be basically getting stimulated by the sympathetic nerves. Will be stimulated by the sympathetic nerves, which will accelerate the heartbeat. So we have seen that there are two types of nerve, parasympathetic and sympathetic nerve. So when the person is basically under any type of condition, emergency condition, so this SA node will be basically intervened or be connected with the nerve fibers which are coming from the medulla oblongata, and will be responsible for stimulating the SA node and accelerate the heartbeat for the urgency action, while the parasympathetic nerve, or we can say vagus nerve, inhibits the SN node and retard the heartbeat. So they both are functioning in an opposite direction. Okay, so we have to note it down. So the neural regulation is basically the regulation of the SN node by the nerve fiber which is coming from the medulla oblongata, and sympathetic will be responsible for accelerating the heartbeat, while the parasympathetic will be responsible for the inhibiting the SN node and hence retarding the heartbeat or slowing down the heartbeat. Apart from neural regulation, we can also see the hormone regulation in the heartbeat. So the hormones which are secreted by the medulla of the adrenal gland, and hence it called as adrenaline. So we have seen there are two types, two parts, medulla and the corticals. So the medulla part of the adrenal glands will be responsible for the secretion of adrenaline, which is also called epinephrine, and the noradrenaline, or we can say norepinephrine. These two are the hormones which will be responsible for regulating the heartbeat. So normally the noradrenaline, or we can say the norepinephrine, will be accelerating the heart rate. Okay, while the adrenaline, or we can say the epinephrine, will be also responsible for accelerating heart rate, but at the time of emergency. Okay, so they both will be responsible for accelerating the heart rate. Noradrenaline will be normal time, and adrenaline will be responsible for increasing the heart rate at the time of emergency, so that more amount of blood can be transported to the different parts of the body, and hence they can be given proper nutrients and oxygens for carrying out the formation of energy. Okay, apart from this adrenaline and noradrenaline, there will be thyroxine is also basically responsible for regulating the heart rate by increasing them. So thyroxine is also produced from thyroid gland, and it will be increasing heart rate and ultimately leading to the increasing the BMR, or we can say regulating the BMR, that is the basal metabolic rate. Now the body temperature is also known to be affecting the heartbeat. So how does it? So when around just a 1 degree Celsius increase in the temperature, if there is only 1 degree Celsius increase in temperature, rise in temperature, it may increase the heart rate by the 10 beats per minute. So if your body is getting increasing its temperature by 1 degree Celsius, then your heartbeat will be getting increased from 72 to 82. So this is how sensitive it will be, and hence basically during the fever the heartbeat will be increased, and the pulse rate will also increase during the fever. Okay, that was about the regulation of the heartbeat. And next is the rate of heartbeat. So we know that what a heartbeat consists of. It consists of one systole and diastole. So one systole and one diastole makes the one heartbeat, and heartbeats per minute is called as heart rate. Okay, so normal heartbeat rate will be rhythmia, called abnormal heart rate called arrhythmia. Okay, and decrease in heart rate is called as bradycardia, and increase in heart rate is called as tachycardia. So it is maybe asked, it's not so important, but still you can go through this. Okay, so that's all up to now. The next lecture will be starting with the electrocardiogram. Let us complete the electrocardiograph as well. Okay, so that was about the heartbeat and heart rate. Next topic is the electrocardiogram. Okay, so it is nothing but a graphical representation. It's also called as ECG. And it is the representation of the electrical activity which is taking place inside the cardiac cycle, during the cardiac cycle. So whatever the electrical activities which are taking place inside the heart during the cardiac cycle can be represented on the paper, and this is called as ECG. This is called electrocardiograph. Now electrocardiograph consists of different types of peaks and waves. Okay, so which will be identified from the letter P to 2. It means PQRST, and that the PQRST are basically the corresponding to the specific electrical activity in the heart. So we know that there are electrical activity will be basically due to the electrical activity only the heartbeat is possible, and that can be represented on the paper, and which can be basically represented by the different like letters like PQRST in the form of waves. Okay, we will see that. Now the P wave represents the electrical excitation or depolarization of atria, which leads to the contraction of both atria. So here you can see this P is a small wave formed, which is basically representing that the P wave is here. The P wave is representing that both the atrium, that is left and right atrium, is basically getting contracted. Okay, the P is basically responsible for contraction of the left and right atrium. Okay, the second is the QRS complex, represent the depolarization of ventricles, which initiates the ventricle contraction. So here the QRS is basically showing this depolarization of the ventricles. So P was showing the depolarization of the atriums, auricles, and this QRS is showing the depolarization of the ventricles, and hence the ventricle will start getting contracted. The ventricles will start getting contracted. Okay, and the contraction starts shortly after Q and makes the beginning of the systole. The T wave represents the return of the ventricles from the excited to normal state, and that is repolarization. And the end of T wave marks the end of systole. Okay. Any deviation from this shape indicates the possibility of abnormality. So here the T shape. So once these ventricles are getting depolarized, they are getting again relaxed. Okay, we can say depolarization, and that is again given by a T. So P is contraction of the atriums, QRS contraction of the ventricles, while the T is the contraction or relaxation of the diastole of the ventricles. Okay, this is about the PQR. Any deviation from this shape, will be basically showing the abnormality functioning of the heart. So here you can see this is a normal heartbeat. This is the fast heartbeat, you can say. Okay, fast heartbeat, the PQRS, see the distance between these two QRS, Q2 R peaks is less. Okay, here slow heartbeat, the distance is high. Irregular heartbeat is basically high low, it doesn't have any particular type of pattern. So this is basically observed during the diagnosis, the person if that he's getting any type of problem or not. Okay, so that was all about the heart and the function, the structure, and all that. Okay, so next lecture we'll start with the blood vessels, the function, the structure, and how they are basically useful for the circulation. Okay, so that was about the heart right now. So in the next lecture we'll start with the blood circulation. Okay.